We all know the story of Noah's Ark, the righteous man, the animals, 40 days of rain. It seems straightforward enough. Humanity had become corrupt, and God decided to wipe the slate clean. But what if I told you that the official reason, the great depravity of mankind, is just the tip of the iceberg? What if the real reason was far stranger and even more unsettling? Today, we're going to delve into why God truly decided to bring about the Great Flood, and the secret, often left unspoken in Sunday schools, might completely turn your understanding of this story on its head. Let's transport ourselves back to that antediluvian world. The Bible tells us that the earth was filled with violence and evil. Humanity had forgotten their Creator, and every inclination of their hearts was only evil. This is the official version everyone knows. But in that very same chapter of Genesis, there are a few lines that are often glossed over. And it's precisely in those lines that the true key to the mystery lies. So, let's dive deep into the heart of this enigma. The first and most crucial clue is hidden in the 6th chapter of the Book of Genesis. Listen carefully to these lines. When mankind began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were beautiful, and they took as their wives any they chose. There it is. This is the starting point of the entire flood narrative. But who exactly are these mysterious sons of God? The official and arguably safest version, the one you've most likely heard, is the Sethite theory. According to this view, the sons of God were the righteous descendants of Adam and Eve's third son, Seth, and the daughters of man were consequently the descendants of his wicked brother Cain. So, the story boils down to the pious lineage of humanity beginning to intermingle with the corrupt one. Good guys started marrying bad girls, to put it simply. Sounds logical and quite human, right? But this is where the first serious inconsistencies begin. Could such a seemingly mundane process as intermarriage truly be the reason for the annihilation of all life on the planet? Was this really the great sin that necessitated such radical measures? People have always chosen partners for various reasons, and not all unions have been ideal. If this was the cause of the flood, why doesn't God send one every week? Admit it, the punishment seems disproportionate to the crime. Now let's consider an alternative version, a version that is far more unsettling, yet simultaneously explains the sheer scale of the catastrophe. What if the phrase sons of God is meant to be understood literally? In the Old Testament, this phrase, B'nai Ha-Elohim in Hebrew, is most often used to refer to supernatural beings. Angels. Picture this for a moment. Powerful spiritual beings, angels, who were meant to serve God in the heavens, directly defy his prohibition. They abandon their rightful dwelling, descend to earth, and, driven by lust, engage in relations with earthly women. This isn't just a story about bad marriages anymore. This is a story about a cosmic crime, about the violation of a fundamental law of creation, one that separated the spiritual world from the material world. This theory, by the way, is extensively detailed in ancient texts, such as the apocryphal Book of Enoch, which was widely popular during the Second Temple period. There, this rebellion of angels is described as the root cause of all the evil that later filled the earth. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a deliberate act of sabotage against God's creation. And this sabotage had very tangible, living, and highly dangerous consequences. Now, for the most fascinating part, the consequences of these forbidden unions, the children born from the sons of God and earthly women. In the Bible, they are called the Nephilim. And again, most translations offer us a simple, straightforward word: giants. We picture enormous, strong people, and our imagination usually stops there. But this is a colossal oversimplification that hides the true horror of the situation. Let's dig deeper. The word Nephilim itself comes from the Hebrew verb naphal, meaning to fall. So, they weren't just giants, they were the fallen ones, or, even more sinisterly, those who cause others to fall. Their name isn't a description of their height, but of their very essence. They were born of rebellion, and in turn brought ruin and destruction into the world. Think about it. These were not human and not angelic. They were hybrids, beings that combined human cunning with almost divine power, but without divine wisdom or compassion. The Bible calls them mighty men of old, men of renown. But their renown was bloody. They were the first super soldiers, the first tyrants, against whom ordinary humans stood no chance. Laws did not exist for them. Morality was an empty concept. Remember, the Bible says that before the great flood, the earth was filled with violence. Now ask yourself, who was the primary source of this violence? Not ordinary people squabbling over a well or a flock of sheep, but these uncontrollable, immensely powerful beings for whom human life held no value. The world became their personal playground. Incidentally, does this remind you of anything? Myths from almost all ancient cultures are filled with stories of demigods and heroes of incredible strength. The Greek Heracles, the Babylonian Gilgamesh, the Irish Cuchulainn, mighty warriors who performed incredible feats, but often had wild temperaments and brought much havoc. Could all these legends be distorted memories, cultural echoes of the same global catastrophe? Memories of a real time when Nephilim walked the earth. Their existence wasn't just a problem. It was a symptom of a terrible disease that had infected creation itself. And this brings us to the core issue, the true reason for the flood, that often goes unmentioned. The problem was no longer merely about behaviour. The problem was in the very blood, in humanity's DNA, and this brings us to the most profound, most unsettling truth. It wasn't merely about moral decay anymore. The problem ran far deeper, far more terrifying. It involved the corruption of humanity itself. Do you grasp the gravity of what I'm saying? Sin, by definition, is a choice. Misbehaviour can be corrected, amended. But what was unfolding on earth transcended mere choice. This was a biological, a genetic catastrophe. Let's call a spade a spade. Human DNA had been irrevocably tainted. God's divine blueprint for humanity, created in his own image and likeness, faced complete annihilation. It was akin to a computer virus. Imagine humanity as a unique operating system, crafted by a brilliant programmer. The Nephilim's genes were the malicious code infiltrating that system. This wasn't just about introducing a few bugs. It began to rewrite core system files, one by one. Eventually, the original program would simply cease to exist. All that would be left was a corrupted, damaged, and utterly inoperable version. And so it was here. The offspring born from the unions of angels and humans proliferated across the earth. Their genes intermingled with human DNA. Generation after generation, the pure human lineage was diluted, like a single drop of clean water poured into a barrel of sludge. This wasn't merely the introduction of a new trait like eye colour or height. This was a fundamental biological alteration of humanity's very essence. Now consider the ramifications. Had this process continued, within a few generations, there would have been no true humans left on Earth. Not a single one. The entire human race would have been supplanted by this new hybrid species, powerful, cruel, yet utterly devoid of that divine spark, that very image and likeness of God. This is precisely why the flood wasn't merely a punishment. It was a desperate, radical surgical intervention. When a disease like gangrene spreads unchecked throughout the body and the affected limb cannot be saved, a surgeon makes the agonizing decision to amputate it to preserve the rest of the organism. God wasn't just washing away sins. He was washing away a genetic contagion that threatened to utterly obliterate all of his creation. This was a global quarantine, a complete planetary decontamination, and the sole hope for a system reset, the only chance for salvation, rested on one single family, the last uninfected file in the entire system. And you already know who I'm referring to. So, what's the real twist here? Why was Noah specifically chosen for salvation? The Bible states he was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. The word blameless is key here. Many researchers of ancient texts believe this refers to more than just his moral character. It's about his lineage. Noah and his family were the last representatives of genetically pure humanity. Their bloodline remained untainted by the union with the sons of God. This suggests the flood wasn't merely a punishment for bad behaviour. It was a desperate and radical surgical operation. God wasn't simply washing away sin from the face of the earth. He was washing away a genetic mutation that threatened to annihilate humanity as a species created in his image and likeness. He was saving the very essence of man so that a new, pure branch could descend from Noah. The flood wasn't so much an act of wrath as it was an act of preserving the human gene pool itself. So, let's summarise. Beneath the official version of punishment for sins lies a deeper and more shocking reason: the protection of humanity from complete genetic degeneration. God wasn't just saving a righteous man. He was preserving a pure human lineage for the future of the entire world. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If this theory has made you think, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new investigations into ancient mysteries. What do you think? Were the Nephilim real beings? Or is this just a beautiful metaphor to describe the tyrants of that era? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read them.